Hello, a very good morning. Welcome along to a brand new week here on Ireland M with the best.
I'm sorry, I can't. It's Monday the 6th of March and we've got to say a huge thank you to
Stop it.
To goss.ie.
Stop it now. Honestly, the crowds
Great
are in
night
here this
on
morning.
Saturday at the Gossies. We walked away with... Are you okay? We walked away
Step aside, Tuberty. Step aside, Tiernan. Miriam O'Callaghan over here. What?
Thank you very much to everyone who voted for us in the Gossies, by the way.
They were clapping, they're now rubbing their heads.
They're like, please make this stop. He's only been in the game, what, 2-3 years? And you're the best television presenter in Ireland.
Listen,
the Goss.
Isn't amazing what a few flops do to your career? No, absolutely. Thank you.
10 flops.
10 flops.
There we go. Thanks, Deric.
Good morning to you all, and thank you very much for all the votes. Very much appreciated. A lovely weekend. Now, it was also a great weekend. Jesus, it's always a good weekend when you see Man United getting thumped by 7 goals. We're going to be talking about that and, of course, the Alliance League football, an action-packed weekend of sport. We're going to be reliving it all later this hour.
Yes, also we're going to be catching up with musician and mental health advocate Bressie as he takes his hugely successful podcast to the stage.
How successful? Like successful?
I don't know if it's as successful as you. I don't know.
Also, plus from Love Island.
Ryan's quaking, so he is.
Chris Rock has called out Will Smith in his new Netflix special. So we're going to be running through the biggest showbiz stories at the moment,
There he is over there.
Yes,
we
will have. Where's your awards?
I'll
go get it.
See, look, now, on the way this morning, we've loads still to come. We're going to be meeting the author who's challenging traditional beauty standards. In the kitchen, Jack O'Keefe is making wild garlic gnocchi while in fashion. We're kidding you out for those upcoming spring weddings. Now, Deric is in my home turf this morning. You're in Ballyfermot.
Yes, Al, up Ballier, we're in your neck of the woods here this morning. It's a dry and settled start with some sunshine to begin your Monday, then shares in across northern areas, sinking southwards across the day. But guys, we've landed here in Ballyfermot, Dublin 10 this morning because we're off to meet the GWA. That is the Girls with Attitude. We have got a Zumba class coming your way later on this morning. And Tommy and Warren, I know you scooped 2 awards at the weekend, but we have the glitter ball up for grabs a little bit later on this morning. A Zumba class en route. And guess what, guys? You're taking part.
Another award for Tommy to win.
That could be the end of the awards if you see me trying Zumba. Very good, Deric. Looking forward to that. That should be a bit of a laugh. Girls with Attitude.
Absolutely. Wow. Now, for our first look at news this morning, it is over to Cliodhna Russell in the Virgin Media News Hub.
Thanks, Muireann. Good morning. A man has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man's body was discovered at a house in Castlebar in County Mayo yesterday evening. Well, our reporter Aisling Roach is at Garda headquarters for us this morning. Aisling, what more can you tell us about this?
Yes, Cliodhna, well, this investigation is at an early stage, but shortly after 6:30 p.m. yesterday evening, Gardaí and Emergency Services attended the scene of a fire at a house in Castlebar in Mayo. There they discovered the remains of a man's body inside that property. They've since arrested a man on suspicion of murder. He's been taken to Castlebar Garda Station. He's been held under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act, where he can be held for up to 24 hours. Now, the state pathologist has been notified, and a technical examination of the scene is due to be carried out later today. Gardaí will be at the scene trying to piece together what exactly happened. But at the moment, Gardaí are appealing for witnesses. Cliodhna.
Aisling, thank you very much for that. A man in his 20s is in a critical but stable condition following a serious assault in Dublin city centre in the early hours of yesterday morning. The man is being treated at Beaumont Hospital following an incident involving a number of men on South Ann Street. Gardaí are appealing for any witnesses to come forward. A status yellow ice warning comes into effect for the whole country at 6 o'clock this evening. According to Met Éireann, freezing temperatures will lead to hazardous driving conditions, including icy stretches on roads and footpaths. Forecasters say temperatures could go as low as -3. The warning remains in effect until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Mark Bowe is a meteorologist with Met Éireann.
Well, it'll be very cold for the next couple of days. Indeed, Monday through Tuesday and into Wednesday, we'll expect cold temperatures, especially in the overnight hours. Now, the forecast does become a little bit tricky from Wednesday onwards. There's some complex weather systems interacting with that cold air as we go through the latter part of the week.
While parts of the US state of California are under severe weather warnings again, with more snowstorms and strong winds expected just days after heavy snow falls in the region. At least 13 people have died across America in recent days as severe hail and tornado storms also hit parts of the south and northeast.
More winter storms are forecast in California. Heavy snow is expected to affect northern parts of the state, with strong winds causing blizzard-like conditions. The state is already digging out from recent heavy winter storms. Many communities in mountain regions are still cut off by blocked roads. Authorities have been using the short window between the storms to try to get food and other supplies to the worst affected. A powerful storm system has also brought severe weather across other states, and a number of people have died as strong winds, hail and tornadoes hit parts of the south and later the northeast. Marie Mulcahy, Virgin Media News.
Outpatient and radiology services will resume at Wexford General Hospital this morning following last week's fire. Hospital management say patients should attend their appointments as scheduled. The emergency department at the hospital remains closed. The hospital also says builders will be on site today as work gets underway to repair the damaged sections. Over 200 patients were evacuated from the hospital following the blaze last Wednesday. A small number of patients have been returned to the hospital, and management say they hope to return more patients over the coming week. Now it's over to Joe for all the sport.
Thanks, Cliodhna. Manchester United fans are reeling this morning after their side were handed a 7-0 hammering by Liverpool at Anfield yesterday, ending their 11-game unbeaten run in all competitions. Cooney gave Liverpool. Mayo remained top of Division 1 in the Allianz Football League with a narrow win over Roscommon yesterday. A goal from Jack Kearney helped them to a 2-point win at Hyde Park.
With just points difference separating them at the top of the Division 1 table, Roscommon were looking to reclaim top spot from their Connacht rivals Mayo as they welcomed them to Hyde Park. Mayo got off to the better start. Tommy Conroy with the opening point of the game within the first minute of the match. The visitors dominated the opening quarter of an hour, racking up 6 unanswered points, including this one from Fionn McDonough with 16 minutes gone. It took Roscommon over 20 minutes to get their first score of the game through a Dermot Murtagh free, and he added a second from play with this impressive effort just over 5 minutes later. Mayo, though, hit back almost immediately. James Carr with a fine finish of his own to restore their 6-point lead. Roscommon kept battling away. Conor Daly on this occasion working some space to kick Roscommon's 4th point of the game, leaving 5 points between the sides at half-time. Roscommon started the second half better. Substitute Kieran Murtagh making an immediate impact with the first point of the second half. And just as things were looking up for the home side, disaster struck. Poor Roscommon defence gifting Mayo a goal-scoring opportunity that Jack Kearney was only too happy to take. Mayo were cruising, but Roscommon refused to give up the fight. Enda Smith dragging his side back into the contest with a fine finish for Roscommon's first goal of the game. With the clock in the red and 4 points between the sides, Conor Cox broke through on goal and finished deftly to set up a nail-biting finish. But Mayo kept their cool, Matty Ruan kicking them 2 points in front with the last score of the game, sealing the win for Mayo on a scoreline of 2-11 to 1-15. Anne-Marie Keegan, Virgin Media Sport.
Elsewhere in Division 1, a Johnny Heaney goal for Mayo helped them to a 6-point win over Monaghan at Pearse Stadium, while Tyrone produced a big second-half performance to beat All-Ireland champions Kerry. A point from Matty Donnelly edged Tyrone in front with just under 15 minutes to play, and they held out for the win on a scoreline of 1-15 to 2-9. Rory McIlroy narrowly missed out on winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational on the PGA Tour yesterday. A final round of 70 left him on 8 under par for the tournament, just a single shot behind winner Kurt Kitayama. Darren McElhenney recorded a personal best time of 7 minutes, 44.72 seconds, en route to a 4th place finish in the 3,000 metres at the European Indoor Athletics Championships in Istanbul. Earlier in the day, there was disappointment for the women's relay team as they finished 5th in the 4x400 metre. That was well won by the Dutch team, and Sarah Lavin finished 6th in the 60-metre hurdles finals. That's your sport for now. We'll have more for you at 7:30. Here's Deric with your weather.
For car insurance, van insurance or home insurance, call the Quote Devil. Unless, of course, you've got money to burn.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Very good morning. We're live here from Ballyfermot in Dublin 10 this morning. We have got a Zumba class coming your way later on this Monday. So get your gear on, get your colours on, because that's all to come in and around 8:45. Anyway, an opening look at weather together. Let's pull back the curtains now on the 6th of March with Oisin Moran with us on cameras here this morning. And thankfully it is a mainly dry and settled start. We're seeing a mixture of bright spells and cloud cover out there this morning, with the exception of the Midwest and through the northeast. In fact, we're seeing showers there through parts of West Clare, North Kerry, and across parts of eastern and southeastern Limerick, just nudging there onto the North Cork border in those light to moderate northerly winds. Now, right across the day, we will see rain into northern spots, and bit by bit, that's going to sink in a southerly direction, clearing out in behind it, and underneath those clear spells, in fact, it will be quite a cold day in store. We're talking 4 to 5 across the northern half of the country, a little bit milder across southern sections at 7 to 9 degrees. So into tonight, as those showers clear out into the Irish Sea, we're going to see good dry, clear spells across the country, allowing for a sharp to severe ground frost, icy stretches as well to take us through tonight into tomorrow morning, because it will be a bitterly cold night ahead in that northerly airflow, with values in and around freezing to -3, even -4 degrees. So very, very cold out there tonight. Anyway, that's how it's shaping up for now here in Ballyfermot. Dublin 10 will be back again live at 7:35.
For first-time drivers, young drivers, returning drivers, if you've had an open claim or have had too many penalty points.
Now it's time to take a look at this morning's paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline: Coalition divided over options to cut private car usage. Coalition tensions are growing over plans to reduce private car usage, with ministers set to discuss a new strategy at Cabinet tomorrow.
Catholic primary schools reject calls for transgender education. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. Catholic primary school managers say their pupils should not be taught what it means to be transgender in a strongly worded letter sent to the government ministers.
The Examiner leads with rise in sharing of intimate images. There has been an alarming rise in young people engaged in sharing intimate or nude images, the Gardaí have said.
Hundreds of refugee properties offered or rejected is the top story on the Daily Mail. Refugees Minister Roderick O'Gorman needs to be far less fussy when it comes to accepting accommodation, senior colleagues have warned.
The Mirror goes with murder probe as body found in burning house. A man has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a body with a suspected gunshot wound was found at a house last night.
The Star leads with that same story. Arrest in murder probe. Body with suspected gunshot wounds found in blazing house.
The Herald's front page: umpire assaulted at under-18 hurling match in Dublin 4. A GAA umpire was allegedly assaulted during a minor hurling league game in a South Dublin suburb yesterday morning.
And the Sun leads with Leave Aid. A spectacular Live Aid style benefit gig is to be held to help victims of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Now, if there's anything on your mind this morning, you can get in touch with us. As always, it is 089 611 111 to send us a text.
But after the break, we're going to be delving into the stories making this morning's headlines. See you back here in a couple of minutes. Now you're very welcome back to Ireland AM. Time to take a look at the stories making the big news this morning.
Joining us to discuss... What are you putting in here? This is you. Oh my God. Joining us to discuss the Gossie's big winners. Is that what you're saying? He's been editing my stuff all morning and I didn't get to this on time.
You know this story, Gabija, don't you?
Yeah, very familiar. Gabija Gataveckaite from the Irish Independent.
Morning, how are you?
So huge story this morning from... No, we're going to move on. This is something that we're kind of might be taking some ideas from the French. And this is an eviction ban. What's going on?
So obviously we have an eviction ban in place at the moment. The government is looking at extending it now, or do we scrap it altogether? There's a range of options before us. Of course, the eviction ban was put in place during the winter. There was all these stark warnings about, people are going to be made homeless. Homelessness figures have actually risen whilst the eviction ban was put in place. I suppose the argument that could be made on the other side of that as well, if we didn't have the eviction ban, those numbers would be even higher. It's due to lapse now at the end of March. Government is saying, what do we do? So there's three options really before ministers. Letting the ban elapse totally, which is what, of course, the landlords want, because they're saying it's my property rights. I should be able to sell that property, which means the eviction of the tenant, if I so want to.
So, sorry, you can't actually even sell your property at the minute now if you have a tenant.
So you can sell it with the tenant in situ, but it is usually harder. I mean, what most landlords do, if they want to sell the apartment, their house, is they just evict the tenant and then sell it open on the open market. The other option is continuing the eviction ban, but making provisions for those landlords whose stories we have heard in recent months, who have said, I was abroad, I emigrated, I had a property here, was rented out, I'm back now, I'm looking to come back to Ireland and pay taxes and make, get a job.
Or my kids are moving to Dublin or whatever
Yes,
else.
and I have that property, but there's tenants in it and I cannot evict them, so I'm couch surfing or I'm renting and I can't find anywher to live.
There was a person on The Tonight Show, and she is a landlord who came back from Dubai and she is homeless because she can't move into her
own place.
Which is, I mean, that's not really right either, especially when you have a property.
No.
The third option, and I think Fianna Fáil's Paul McAuliffe has floated this idea to me previously before as well, is what France have, which is an annual eviction ban. So every single winter, I believe it's from November to March in France, an eviction ban kicks in, and ministers might put that in place every single year.
The winter truce.
Winter truce. Don't think it'll be very popular with the Irish Property Owners Association, but that is something that's before ministers as well.
So there is an option here to go, okay, if you are a private landlord, so you have got one house, two houses, you're a small landlord. You could treat them differently to corporate landlords, right?
I don't know if that's possible. I mean, what they're considering is making special provisions for landlords who
want to move back into the property or allow their children.
Who move but want to move back into the property.
Can they not go, right, okay, you have 100 properties, you're a corporate landlord, you're already getting a brilliant tax rate in comparison to private landlords who are paying almost half on tax. Can they not just have a bit of common sense here and go, well, that person has one property, they're not the same as a corporate landlord?
We're hearing so many tales of landlords selling up and leaving the market. I mean, this is... I've been reporting on this, I think, since August 2021.
These are the three options, Muireann.
Sorry, how dare we actually have a bit of sense?
But you would think this honestly would make sense to differentiate the two, to take the institutional landlords, they've got 100 properties, let's treat them differently, to the small accidental landlords with one or two.
Who are propping up the market.
But there's obviously a reason that the big corporates are in here, and the reason that they get the beneficial rate on tax as well. Let us know on this again, 0896 111 111. Are you a landlord at the minute and you would love to sell your property, or you would love to move into your property, but you can't because of this eviction ban? Or when we're seeing the amount of homeless figures, will it rise if this eviction ban is lifted? We just don't know what way it's going to go. We would love to hear from you on this. Let's talk about the next one. I mean, this is quite shocking because Paris Hilton has released a memoir about this, about her leaked video there recently, and you have the whole thing with Pamela Anderson with her video. Then there's a rise in sharing of intimate images
by young people.
And it frightens me to think about kids, where this is going. So parents are being told to be vigilant and keep check of their children's phones, but it's obviously rising, it's getting worse.
It's quite harrowing. So yes, Gardaí are saying that there is a rise in the numbers of young people who are sharing nude or intimate images online, and then they perhaps maybe send it to their friends or maybe their girlfriends, boyfriends, and then those images end up on the internet without their consent. So, of course, we know that is illegal. If there is an image that's shared of you online without your consent, under Coco's law, that is an offence. In most instances, though, you go to the social media company, it takes them about 3 days to remove the image.
3 days.
The damage is done.
And that's only when the companies are in the EU or in Ireland, because a lot of these have servers all over the world, so it's impossible to get them removed.
A lot of victims apparently also say they don't come forward, they don't do anything about it because they're too embarrassed. They took that photograph, it made it online, they obviously didn't want it to end up for everybody to see. Everyone's seen it and they just don't want to do anything about it.
And the thing is, so say you are someone who is 15 years old and you have sent an image to your boyfriend. When boys and girls do that, it can often be different, and it's whether you've got your face in it. These images can then be doctored to put someone else's, that happens as well. But the fact is, if that's shared on, that's child sexual abuse imagery. So you could be that 15-year-old boy
extremely
and
illegal.
You could have the guards coming to your door and you could get a custodial sentence for that.
Yeah, so Gardaí are saying, for parents to be a little bit vigilant about this, to be aware of it, to keep a track of what, I suppose, kids do on their phones. But of course, we know nowadays, even for myself and even for, I know my niece, she's only not even 2 years old. she loves the phone. She's always watching videos on it, and she's going to grow up with it. So how do you keep an eye on them, and how do you actually control what it is that they do online?
It's important, to, even for parents, to mention to their children
absolutely
the actual repercussions of this.
Yep.
That if you were to send an image like this and accidentally or whatever, it did get passed on, it did spread, that actually could really come down hard on you. So young people probably aren't even aware of that. They just think what they're doing is quite innocent. But again, 0896 111 111, give us your opinion on that one. Let's move on to the final story. So and we've seen quite a lot of this recently.
We have, but the shock at where this happened by the papers, like they're fanning themselves as though things can't happen in Dublin 4.
So there was an umpire assaulted in an under-18 hurling match in Dublin yesterday.
In the leafy suburb of Sandy.
It's a big deal that it was Dublin 4. I was like, this is happening everywhere.
So it is, I mean, this is a really shocking incident. It was an under-18s hurling match. And the umpire, there was an eyewitness that spoke to the Irish Independent. The eyewitness is saying that the umpire had blood gushing out of their head. Apparently they were set on by 2 people. One of them fled in his car afterwards. Really quite an unbelievable incident on a Sunday morning. You know, under-18s minor match, and this happens. We have seen it happen a couple of times between different matches. The former president of the GAA, Sean Kelly, saying that there really needs to be tougher sanctions that are put on parents to make them realise...
This is assault.
It is assault. It's extremely illegal. You know, you're attacking somebody, but you're also, like, it's Sunday morning, you're playing a match. It's supposed to be a bit of fun, and it's not supposed to turn to violence.
Like, in October, the Munster Council investigate an alleged assault on a 9-year-old in a game in Thurles. A fortnight ago, there was a match in an under-11s game. It was called off because the abuse the referees were getting. Then when you're having umpires, I mean, these are volunteers who are standing the pitch side and
do it to help out their community. And we know all too well from parents, even given verbal abuse, which can be sometimes just as hurtful as a physical attack, to referees, umpires, and can make their jobs and lives very difficult.
Like the spectators had to run in and kind of stop this assault from happening. Like, it just seems bonkers that this is a thing. That you're like, this is meant to be enjoyable, and they're giving up their free time.
It's meant to be a bit of fun, isn't it?
I just like so it comes down to the clubs. This is what the GAA are saying. The clubs know who these hotheads are. It has to be stamped out, and it has to be done internally. So it is going to fall on the clubs to know who these parents or who these supporters are, and actually try and get them away from the game. So it's a pretty difficult one.
Ban them from matches.
Surely there should be a ban. Like, if you're involved in this, we'd love to know, not that you're assaulting, but you know what you would like to see being done if you've got this abuse.
But it's nothing new, I don't think.
No, I know.
I mean, I was part of Gaelic football matches and sports matches where parents are involved. I mean, I don't think it's anything new. Or is it getting worse? Like, is it actually getting to the stage where people are just getting so upset and irate on the sidelines?
0896 111 111. We would love to hear from you. Gabija Gataveckaite from the Irish Independent. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Still to come this hour, one undercover journalist talks about the accessibility of buying drugs online. We saw this report last week. It's crazy.
Insane. Well, after the break, we're going to dissect all the weekend's big sporting moments. And of course, Man United.
Not one bit of abuse thrown at the referee in the Man United match.
Goals was great. See you after the break.
Welcome back. Now, an investigation has found that it is as easy to buy drugs online as it is to get a takeaway delivered.
It's absolutely unbelievable. But why are drugs so readily available online? Joining us now to answer this very question is Barry Gallagher from the Irish Sun. Good morning to you, Barry.
How are you doing?
Thank you for joining us. This is an incredible story, but why did you start investigating it initially?
I guess there's been a lot of conversations recently about decriminalisation. You know, a citizens' assembly, getting stakeholders involved, people affected by drugs. And, you know, as I said, going down a dark alley and having someone open a big, long brown coat and showing off what they got, that's just not how drug dealing works anymore. So the next logical step is social media, and clearly, you know, it's very, very fruitful for the guys there.
An awful lot of time we can be a bit oblivious, even though we have got massive crime and drug families in this that are Irish, you know, and they proliferate drugs all over Europe. So what did you do to find out how easy it was to get drugs online?
So essentially, the kind of investigation began very, very simply. I didn't think it would pay off at all. I went on Instagram and looked up Dublin cocaine, 2 simple words. And, you know, I was met with hundreds of profiles openly. advertising drug use or, the sale of drugs. Go into a hashtag then, Cocaine Dublin, 14,000 posts, all advertising.
So you could then just click on that and somebody would talk to you, or you could order whatever?
Essentially how it works is, open forums like Instagram, it's a little risky to do that kind of thing. But private messaging apps like Snapchat and, Telegram is another big one.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as, you put in your profile details there.
So does one lead you to another, basically? But then at the same time, Instagram did say that you may be entering a site that sells drugs, but you were still allowed to do it.
That's essentially what it was. I look up Dublin cocaine, they say, well, just to be very clear with you, there may be drugs advertised to you.
But it's not blocked, you could still go in.
You say, no, well, I want to see this, and they say, right, go right ahead.
I mean, they're taking down pictures of women breastfeeding, and they're not it says that there could be paraphernalia for sale.
It's Instagram did respond to the investigation by blocking the Cocaine Dublin hashtag, but as I did in the report, I was able to do this in every city in the country.
So cocaine Galway, cocaine Limerick, cocaine Waterford, cocaine Cork.
It was as simple as that. Looked up Cocaine Dublin. 10 minutes later, I was in contact with a dealer in the city. I was showing what they had on offer.
What was he offering you?
Very, very forthcoming. I'd say within reason, I could have had whatever I wanted. Cocaine, ketamine, ecstasy, marijuana, edible cannabis.
Is he telling you or is he showing you pictures?
It varied from dealer to dealer. Again, a lot of them, as I said, very forthcoming. The minute you add them, they'll give you a call. They were usually the first to shoot the message, even though I was pretty eager. But a lot of them even would send videos and pictures of what they had.
Is it true that there was one guy in Limerick or one girl, we don't know, that literally said that they'd have the drugs to you in an hour?
Half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah. They're even more efficient than I thought. But
so literally quicker than you'd get a takeaway. That's the whole thing.
Definitely, your pizza's free. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
And this guy wasn't dealing in small amounts. And his menu, he was offering up to 50 grams of cocaine. That's €2,000 worth of illegal drugs.
This is a Snapchat conversation that you had with someone in Dublin.
Yeah, that's a conversation.
White Widow haze, okay, right? Basically. Listing out.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. You just ask what you got.
And what prices are we talking about? What are you paying?
So for the cocaine, you'd be looking per gram around €80 to €100. Now that's if you're buying in smaller quantities. The guy in Limerick who could have my delivery at my door in half an hour, he was offering up to 50 grams of cocaine, and that was for €2,000.
50 grams. So he had that at his disposal there.
He could have had that to my door, no questions asked, in half an hour. Yeah.
So we're sitting here going, these are illegal substances.
Yep.
These are dealers. Whatever about the decriminalisation and not going after the users of drugs, which is a different issue. And these are very vulnerable people in society who are an awful lot of people. They're addicts. But not only that, there are a lot of people that we all know that recreationally would be going out doing drugs, right?
Yep.
And I think for parents, this might be a little bit shocking. 0896 111 111. Was there ever any reticence thinking that this could be an undercover guard?
No.
None?
Nobody had a clue. I mean, it was... For the investigation, I made a brand new Snapchat account, so, no evidence that I had been on the app for long, but not one person asked me what my age was, no personal details whatsoever. It was, have it to your door, have the cash, no questions
asked. Did it even ask you, were you over 18 or anything?
No.
No questions asked at all. So it just shows the, I'll not say ignorance, but, it's clearly a thriving business and that they don't expect this kind of heat,
I was talking to a TY student last week who's like, well, someone in my class, they're dealing out of their locker. And then, or in the year below them, and I was talking to a parent whose child shows them and they go through and on their Snapchat, it's like, this is what's available.
My God.
And it's someone, and
how old
this
is the
what's
child?
Happening, think in third year. I think. 0896 111 111, because obviously there are some parents who have these amazing sort of relationships with their kids. If you're shocked about this, but this is about this isn't specifically. This is for absolutely anyone can go on and find drugs.
Anyone.
Like this.
I mean, this wasn't. I didn't use any tricks of the trade to do this. It was, as I said, it was scarily simple.
Were you shocked by it as a journalist doing this?
Yeah,
like a shock.
Sometimes you have to
it was.
kind of expect the worst, but I was massively shocked. I knew that, you know, I thought with a bit of digging I might get somewhere, but you know, to be able to get in contact with a drug dealer in every city in the country just from
and
Instagram.
You have let Instagram and Snapchat and all of them know as a journalist that you were able to do this. What was their responses to you?
Instagram, as I said, they removed the
they
cocaine
removed that particular one.
Yeah, but you know, they have a lot more holes to plug. As they said, you know, they said that they're in close contact with law enforcement. You know, they actively pursue drug sales. Snapchat gave something quite similar. They try to monitor it themselves, but they do need reporting from users. No comment from the guards.
No comment from the guards.
But yeah, as I said, there's a lot of holes that need to be plugged. Whether that's if there's more collaborations needed between social media outlets and the guards, it's hard to see a perfect solution.
100%, it's openly happening. No one's doing this on the street. It was fascinating reading it last week, and it really did kind of open my eyes. As I had no clue.
Open a lot of people's eyes. I was shocked by it as well this morning.
So it was in the Irish Sun last week. Barry Gallagher, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about your investigation this morning. We appreciate it.
Lots more still to come the next hour. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Well done.
You're very welcome back. Now, our next guest made a career in the beauty industry, but growing up as a minority in Wales, she felt far from what society defined as pretty.
In her new book, which is titled Ugly, she untangles society's toxic beauty standards, and we're delighted to welcome journalist and author Anita Bhangwandas to the show. Good morning, Anita. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you guys?
It's lovely to have you here. Obviously, you've gone right for it, going with a book that is called Ugly. So why did you choose that as the title?
I chose that because it's such a strong word. So even if, you know, I think everyone has a reaction to that word, whatever that might be. So that is why I chose it. And I know that I had a reaction to that. So it meant a lot.
Yeah, I think the word absolutely brings up memories and people. Like, what is it? What are the memories that kind of trigger to you whenever you hear that word that made you think, I'm going to title my book Ugly?
Well, one of the earliest memories actually for me was when I was 4, I went to a princess party and there was a lady who was sort of handing out these princess outfits at this party. And when I got to the front of the queue, she turned and looked at me and said, "You're too big for it." And it was the first time that I felt different and I felt othered and I felt ugly. And I was told by an adult that essentially I didn't fit in. There was something wrong with me. And from that moment, it sort of started a chain of almost, there were lots of different events where I was told I was different and ugly in different ways. And it was a very early memory. And that was the first time, really.
I just think that's so horrible. We were talking here last week about, in this country, how girls as young as 5 are presenting with eating disorders now. Because you are forming as a human being at that age, and those outside influences have a huge effect. And for you, there was this otherness. You were othered very much in Wales for being different.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I wasn't huge. Not that that should ever matter. No one should ever say anything to children like that, or adults actually at all. But I was a little bit bigger. I did have frizzy curly hair. I did have dark skin, so I wasn't the beauty standard. And we see those beauty standards everywhere, particularly when we're children. We see them in cartoons that we watch. We see them in the fairy tales. We see them in the books, our toys. All of it is a beauty standard, and we don't think about that.
Yeah.
You see, it's so interesting. We don't think about all these things. We want to get into what these toxic traits are. But from all of this, you actually ended up getting involved in the beauty industry. You know, you write for an awful lot of magazines and you're a beauty editor. So why did you go down that route? You were obviously always interested in makeup and all that kind of stuff. Did you find that when you got into that world that it was very intense?
I did, yeah. It is very intense, and it's been very interesting to sort of, I unpick a lot of the inside of the industry in the book as well. But the reason I got into it was because I was so obsessed with beauty products, partially because I couldn't get any beauty products for my skin tone back in the 90s. So I did have to think outside the box, and it meant, knowing everything I could about beauty products. And I'd always been obsessed with the idea that beauty products could make me be beautiful and make me feel attractive for the first time in my life. And that was my entry point into them when I was a teenager. That was what I became obsessed with. And it did lead to a whole career in the beauty industry. But alongside that, I also knew that there was another way to do beauty. And I knew that there was a way that if we could represent everyone and make people feel empowered through beauty, that could be incredible and that could create a lot of change.
Absolutely. And it's fantastic that you got into it to try and make that change. But the beauty industry is known globally as a pretty ruthless and quite critical industry to get into. So when you first stepped into that, I'm sure you're quite unsure, like anybody going into a new job. Was it difficult?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I had to do a lot of internships when I first started in my career. And I did feel so different from everyone. Invariably, most of the people on, the various teams, and particularly beauty teams, were, sort of all quite similar and, look quite similar and maybe went to quite similar schools and, etc. So I did feel quite different and I did feel like an outsider. So it is interesting now looking back that I put myself in that position again.
Yeah, it is really interesting. But working from the inside out, because I know that when I was growing up with magazines, everyone looked a certain way. Everyone was a certain size. And that's what was forced down our throat as to what we should all be, what we should all aspire to. And whether it's subliminal or not, it's definitely something that happens. So did you see it inside that industry and going, well, this is the image that's being pushed and that's it. This is the standard and it's happening for a reason and it's making people feel bad to buy more products?
Yeah, I did see how that was pushed. And, to a certain extent, it is still being pushed. And I do talk about that in the book, how the industry needs to change to really include people. But I think I saw what I really saw was that actually, if you do represent people, it can be really game changing for all the damage that's been done in the past. So, for example, on one magazine I worked in, it was a very luxury fashion magazine, and I did an amazing photo shoot with people from lots of different backgrounds. There was a transgender model, there was somebody with a disability, there were lots of different people who weren't considered the beauty standard for whatever reason. And I got so many responses from that feature, and this was probably about 10 years ago. And I could see how that representation could change people's lives. So there is the plus side. And in terms of the products as well, you can have a lot of fun with beauty products. This is the thing. I'm not anti-beauty products. That would be hypocritical. I think you can really express yourself and use beauty as a canvas and use, like you would with clothes, you can express yourself. And I think that's incredible. But so often we are told to correct and conceal and hide ourselves through beauty products. And that is what I have an issue with.
And do you not think, because you mentioned there that you don't think the industry is changing, do you not think it is changing for the better?
I do think it is changing for the better. And, 10 years ago when I was going to beauty launches as a beauty assistant then, there were often times when they were foundation shades for my skin tone, for example. So it is changing and there is representation, much more than there was before, but it still doesn't go far enough, for example. And I talk about this in the book and I explain the mechanisms behind this because we're never taught these things in school and we're so rarely taught about, colonisation and the impacts of that and the legacy of that, etc. But I talk about how colorism, for example, which is sort of a preference for lighter skin tones, how that evolved and how that plays out in the beauty industry. And you often see it in advertisements and not just beauty. It happens in fashion and lots of other areas too. But there is a preference for a lighter skinned, dark person. And that's still a huge issue in sort of general advertising and beauty too.
And when you go into, because you go into the history of this and everything that's happened, and as you mentioned there, you're talking about colonisation. Why is it? Is it just that this was the beauty standard and they've decided to stick with that?
Yeah, it's more complex than that. It does go back a really, really long time, but because essentially, at some point, it predates this, but when colonisation was happening and Europe was colonising different continents and countries, there was often a preference. The people who were in charge, the sort of, we'll take Britain as an example, the British people in charge would show preference for people with lighter skin tones. So then it created a hierarchy within the culture that already existed for different reasons, but it sort of really amplified it. So there was a real association then with pale skin and privilege. And we see this quite a lot when you see it in in America too, when lighter-skinned slaves would have had preference and would have been inside, and what slaves with darker skin would have been outside. So there was a real hierarchy of skin colour, and it's really, really toxic when you unpick it. But we're just not ever told about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. Listen, the book is called Ugly, Giving Us Back Our Beauty Standards. Have you any just key messages that you would hope that people really get from reading it?
I think the biggest message for me, and the biggest thing I take away from reading the from having written the book, is that our beauty standards don't just exist. They're not facts. They come from somewhere, and that's the whole basis of the book, because I wanted to unpick where they came from, who started them, and why they've still endured as well. So that's my biggest message, is to almost think critically about beauty standards, and hopefully the book will help with that.
Anita Bhangwandas, author of Ugly, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome back. We're eating the food already. Jack O'Keefe is with us, and he's cooking up a gorgeous gnocchi with pickled mushrooms.
And wild garlic, Jack.
Wild garlic.
No, you haven't got...
No, look at the face.
I think it's gorgeous. Surprise, surprise.
It's lovely. It's lovely, Jack.
I love gnocchi.
So spring is sprung, right? And it's time to get out of the house, get out of the supermarket and go find your food in the wild.
Oh, really? Is that what I was tasting that earlier on, not realising it was actually...
Yeah, you trusted me that I didn't poison you with some poison, get ivy or anything.
Where would you find wild garlic?
Surprisingly, most woodland parks in Ireland have wild garlic everywhere, and it's very easy to find. Stick your nose into the air and just smell.
But are you allowed to do it, and is it safe to do it?
The Cork fella's going to come out at me here. It's perfectly legal as long as you're not caught. Right?
Hold up a leaf there so I know what it looks like and like what to look for. Because I mean, me going off searching for leaves.
This is the wild garlic leaf. It's easy this time of year because the whole woodland is brown, and all of a sudden you'll see these green sticking out. And just smell it. If it smells like garlic, it's perfectly safe to eat. And if you, on my Instagram actually, I posted a little kind of video of me foraging yesterday, so you get to see what it looks like in a woodland.
Okay. So what have you done with that then?
Nothing. Just cut it from the ground with the scissors, bang, and I just rinsed it.
You're blitzing it?
Yeah, and now to move on into the recipe, we're going to make a pesto out of it. So the first thing we're going to do is, see the way in a pot here I have some cashews, just simmering away gently.
Cashew nuts?
Cashew nuts, yeah. So we're going to make a pesto, and these cashews are going to make it really creamy. So I popped some of the cashews into a blender jug.
So you're better off to boil the cashew nuts, kind of, or just soften them up a bit?
Just soften them. Or you can soak them in cold water overnight. But if you're in a rush on live TV, just put it into a pot with some simmering water. Done. Right. I'm going to blanch some of all the wild garlic, and just take the rawness away from it, right? See the way I literally just put it in? And give it 20 to 10 seconds, just like you would with spinach at home, and into cold water. And that just cools it down, stops it from cooking, stops it from overcooking and going dark brown. Because as it cooks, it'll change colour. See the way the one I prepared earlier in front of me in the Cliodhna jar is luminous green?
Yeah.
It's because of this. It's the cooling down of it. It keeps its lovely green colour.
So if I went and put this into the blender, it was still roasting hot?
It'll start to age in colour, like old pesto. You know when you buy a jar of pesto and you open it and you put it back into the fridge, and then all of a sudden you notice that it's completely kind of changed colour and it's gone a bit dull. Cashews, wild garlic, some lemon juice, salt, pepper, obviously. Good glove. Some olive oil.
Oh, it's olive oil.
I've also...
I absolutely love pesto.
A little pinch.
I never thought of making
it yourself.
Oh.
Pinch of sugar.
And hold on, sorry, this is it, really,
and that's it, yeah. It's a great way of preserving it as well, you know, because if you take, like, from the land, if you go foraging and stuff, the last thing you want to do is throw it into the bin after going through all the effort.
So
and that's it.
Is all pesto, green pesto, wild garlic?
No, it could be basil, mint, parsley, whatever leafy green herb. So you can make pesto out of anything.
What's the nuts in it then? You wouldn't normally have nuts in pesto.
You normally have pine nuts in pesto. But they're
nuts.
scandalously expensive. Absolutely scandalous. So to move on to the rest of the recipe, we're going to start cooking our gnocchi. I'm using store-bought gnocchi. You can make your own at home. It's very easy and fun, but on live TV, it would be an absolute disaster.
Okay.
To make it yourself?
To make it, yeah. There'd be mash everywhere and flour everywhere. It'd be my hair, my fringe, the whole lot. I'd be walking around the studio with two white handprints on my arse.
Fringe now.
No.
Oh, not telling you.
Done. Skiing got nothing on me.
Store-bought gnocchi's grand, isn't it?
It's perfect. Look, it's convenient and it's an ideal midweek meal.
Yeah.
So gnocchi goes in 5 to 6 minutes. Now, pickled mushrooms, a bit extreme. But the reason being is, as you're eating the gnocchi, it's quite garlicky, it's sweet, it's heavy with the potato-based gnocchi. Something sharp and pickled like a mushroom just cuts straight through it. And I'm keeping on
why are you pickling it then?
Because it's a good preservative, and I'm kind of teaching people that, again, if you go out foraging, how to preserve something, or if you buy excess, and especially with like if it's only 2 people living in a house, and you buy a big box of mushrooms.
Should you not be really careful if you're foraging for more mushrooms?
You should. With mushrooms, you should be very careful because it can either go very good or very bad very quickly if you pick the wrong mushroom. So I always advise people, go on a mushroom foraging course before you start foraging mushrooms.
Or just buy them in a supermarket.
Yeah, or that. Or pay someone to forage them for you. So in this pot, right, I have 1 cup of cider vinegar and I'm adding about 1 cup of caster sugar. Bring it up to a simmer until the sugar dissolves. I have 2 star anise in cider, but at home you can use whatever you want. Right. And this is my basic pickle. If I've grown my own cucumbers and I want to make my own gherkins, this is the exact same recipe.
Right.
Pour it over some mushrooms that are just raw and cut up inside in a jam jar. Pour it in.
And you leave it that?
Leave it like that. Pop the lid on it. And you're done. And that will last for a few months.
Few months?
Few months. And I make big ones like this then so they last longer.
Right.
Right?
And obviously I was going to ask when would you use them, but obviously in a recipe like this.
And a recipe when you're making gnocchi, mushroom gnocchi.
So into a hot pan, to finish off the dish, we add some olive oil.
Whoa.
And that's what happens when water gets into your oil. Just pop in your gnocchi.
So you've boiled it first?
Yeah, just simmer it like with pasta.
And then you're just putting it in the pan to fry it off a little bit?
Just like that. Little bit of the cooking water. Just to build up the sauce. A few leaves of wild garlic, cook them down into it like spinach. And speaking of pestos, rocket pesto there is absolutely fabulous as well. And you really, as I know snow is forecast, but we need to start getting summery, loads of fresh flavours. Some of the pesto that I made last night, pop that in.
Look at that colour.
Salt and pepper, give it a toss.
Gorgeous, isn't it? There you go, the mess is made.
So you actually do this a lot, do you? Like,
yeah, because once I have...
Make stuff like in pots and jars and stuff.
All the time. We're constantly out with the dog walking on the mountains and I'm constantly finding stuff, bringing it back, spending my Sunday making these things. And in my midweek meals are super easy because I'm just taking this out of the fridge and scooping it into some store-bought gnocchi.
Yeah. What else are you adding to it then? Oh, you're putting...
So
you're not heating, you're not frying the mushrooms off
then?
No,
just putting them in cold, like a little garnish.
Well, Jack, it gets the thumbs up for me now. Absolutely gorgeous. I polished off the one that was meant to be for the 2 of us.
Then I have some Irish cheddar, some rocket, and that's it. Simple as.
And what are these little bowls? Are these sort of a certain...
I got them in a very large English supermarket group across Ireland. Yesterday, I walked through and I went, oh my God, they're gorgeous.
They're very cool. Very cool.
OK, thank you so much, Jack. That's delicious.
O'Keefe nailed it. Gorgeous.
Now, it's time for a quick break, but do stay with us because after this break, we're going to get a masterclass in Zumba. See you in a few minutes.
Welcome back. Jack, that was absolutely delicious. Sorry, that was so good if you're thinking about making it. Now it's time to pick up the pace on Ireland Day, I believe.
So I believe Deric is in Ballyfermot. Deric, it's time to Zumba.
Lads, we are picking up the pace. In fact, we are spreading the love here this morning in Ballyfermot. Hello to all the girls. Zumba with Lorraine. Lorraine Smith, good morning. How are you?
How are you doing, Deric? How are you?
I'm really good. Tell us about Zumba, Lorraine.
OK, so Zumba, it's a Latin-inspired dance fitness class, basically. So it's for everyone, all walks of life.
And there is all walks of life here this morning, isn't there?
Mom and all, yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. It's really good. It was created in 2001, so that's 22 years. It's celebrating its 22 years this year. So it goes to show that it stands in the test of time.
Absolutely. Now, you're up and running 4 years here as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about your classes here.
Right, classes are every Wednesday, at 5:45 every Wednesday. Right, so I'm training now. I did the training here 4 years ago, actually in this studio.
Very building, wow.
Yeah, very building.
Incredible.
So ironically, I'm actually teaching my classes here. Brilliant. So, look, anybody can do it. Anybody can do Zumba. Honest to God, it's just...
And it's a great way to keep fit. I mean, I've been doing a class with you and the girls here this morning.
And you were sweating.
Oh, I was sweating.
Yeah.
But not only that, we're talking about mental health as well.
Absolutely. Look, they call it exercise in disguise. Do you know what I mean? I've been doing it in the psychiatric unit in Tallahassee.
Yes, tell us about that. So you're based down in Tala as well. How's that going for you?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. What was supposed to be initially 8 to 10 weeks.
OK.
I've been doing it for 2 years now.
You're joking me.
Come here. It's just absolutely amazing. I'd have service course users coming in and they say, I haven't danced or danced or listened to music in years. And it's just changed our lives.
And that's great. Okay, we're going to pop over here to Audrey. Audrey, we're all about girls with attitude, GWA.
Oh yes, that's us.
Fitness for everyone, really.
For everybody, doesn't matter how young, how old, your fitness levels. Just come along, dance, have fun. We have Zumba, fit steps and yoga here on offer. And as you can see, everybody loves it.
And everyone's enjoying themselves as well.
Yes, it's all about having some fun.
Absolutely. And we're going to pop over here to Elaine. Good morning to you, Elaine.
Hi.
Elaine, how long are you doing Zumba?
About 10 years.
And why did you decide to take it up?
Just really to get active. I think at our age we need to...
Our age, look at the two of them. And that's your best mate?
Yeah, so I met Bernie here. Yeah. We've been friends ever since.
And you're loving it?
Love it. We always leave with a smile on our face.
Absolutely. And there's a bit of crack as well.
Great crack.
And you're knocking off a couple of pounds.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win. All right, we're going to pop back here to Lorraine. Lorraine, I believe you're going to teach me 3 simple steps. So you're going to teach me 3 simple steps.
Okay. So what we do is, right, you put on blind about the lights, come on.
Okay, yes. Okay, so what are we going to do first?
Okay, so basically the basic salsa moves. Side, side.
Side, okay.
Side.
And side.
Can we go forward? You can put it on the ball.
This is step 2?
Step 2.
Step 2.
Yeah, and then step 3.
Okay.
Good for the bingo wings.
Okay.
Oh! And we push.
Get those arms up, girls.
And we push. And again, side.
Okay, so we're going to put it all together.
Side. Side.
Okay,
side. And forward. Forward.
Whoop.
Back.
2, 3,
and once
4,
again, up.
and up. There we go. Okay, a bit faster now. Here we go. Up.
Side.
Side.
Again. And then you can add a bit of flavour.
I hope you're enjoying this back in studio. Now, Lorraine, the guys back in studio, right? You have choreographed a whole sequence for the guys back in studio.
I heard you are amazing dancers. Also, congratulations about your award over the weekend. Deric was telling me all about it.
Okay, so what are you going to teach the guys?
Okay, I'm going to teach us basic salsa moves. Right, you ready?
Yep.
Come on, Alan, don't let Ballyfermot down.
I'm telling you.
Side. And we go forward. Forward. Forward.
That's it.
And we push. Come on.
There we go. We have it nailed. We have it nailed.
Come on.
The pride of
Come here. Zumba with the Rain guys is where you'll find them online. I have to say, we are having the best crack here this morning. Get your bingo wings up, back to you in studio.
Tommy, what are you doing? Is Tommy not doing the bingo wings?
Bingo wings. Bingo wings. Hey, there you go. Oh, I love it.
Lots of fun.
This morning got pushed in from the side. Now we've got lots on the way for you this morning.
22 years.
22 years. Fair play to them.
Wow, fair play to them.
Yes.
There you go. Don't mess them. The Blizzard's frontman, Bressie, he's out in the back there. He's looking forward to chatting to him about his new podcast.
He's like, Bressie, where is he?
Where is he? He's tall enough, you can't miss him.
We've got some outfit ideas for spring weddings, and journalist Ali Bryan will be running through all the latest showbiz stories. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes.
See ya.
Bingo, bingo,
If you missed that, it's going to be pretty cold outside now.
Cold outside. Yeah. Leading the news. It's going to be icy. It's going to be. You're freezing. What's wrong with you?
Freezing. It's cold.
It's cold
out.
It's cold out.
It's literally cold
Earlier
out.
on, we were talking to Barry Gallagher from the Sun newspaper, who did an investigation last week, quite incredible investigation. He just typed in, basically, drugs, Dublin, and he was able to buy drugs online within half an hour on social media.
Yeah.
Within half an hour, somebody was saying that they would get an X amount of drugs to wherever he wanted in the country. And a lot of text has been coming in. Rachel says, today's younger generation are more led by social media and influencers. Maybe the government should put up advertising on Instagram about the pitfalls of drug use. More should be taught about it in school too. Here we are again, back to the teachers. I have noticed that less younger people drink alcohol, but can't be the same said for taking drugs.
They do have lots of stuff about drugs.
What you said, Muireann, as well, though, that on Instagram they take down pictures of women breastfeeding.
Yeah,
but then they
quickly.
But they won't delete pictures of drug use and whatever else. It just seems that they can do it for one side, but they can't do it for something else.
The funny thing was, on Instagram and other social media outlets, It did. A thing popped up to say to Barry, you may be entering a site that could sell you drugs.
But they're facilitating the sale of drugs. Surely you're looking at a social media company going, well, you're a third-party seller of drugs.
Because it's telling you could be entering a site that sells drugs, but then they did it. Then Instagram did take one site down.
No, a hashtag.
Or a hashtag down, a hashtag.
Sonia just said, whether we want to admit it or not, drugs have always been readily available through various avenues. If you want to get it, you'll be able to find it. We need to educate our children on the dangers. We'll never be able to protect them from encountering the issues in some shape or form. There you go. Like, it's nothing new, but you definitely think that it's a lot more prevalent. And whenever, who is it, Rachel, saying a lot less young ones now, children and teenage, whatever else, they shouldn't be drinking at all.
They're way more easily readily available than when I was a kid.
Well, the price of alcohol is so high nowadays that
drugs are so cheap.
Drugs, it's so
Wherein
cheap.
you were saying about the locker situation.
Yeah, someone in school dealing out of their locker. So they didn't get a job in a shop. They just started dealing, whether it's vapes all the way to hash or maybe a little bit of cocaine out of their locker in school. Now, there we go.
Also talk about landlords and that the coalitions now are meeting to discuss the eviction ban. So whether they're going to cancel that, of course, it's been in for a number of months. Lily has sent in a really interesting message here. While I do feel for landlords, the eviction ban is the only thing that is keeping me safe. I pay my rent, but it's often late as I can't get the money in time for the date it's due. I'm constantly paying catch up, and without the eviction ban, I fear I would be kicked out. My apartment is owned by an investment business.
That's not a private landlord because there has to be something done about corporate landlords. I personally think.
If the investment business are not kicking her out, they understand her situation.
You've got to engage with them. Yeah. Because Orla said, what's an accidental landlord? Surely everything is a decision made. People bought huge apartments and they're in negative equity and they can't sell them. Yeah. Now, they might be able to now, but there could be someone in. So they got with someone else and they've moved into a house or bought a house because they had a family. So there are accidental landlords in the market. Anyway, we talk about it all the time.
Absolutely.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Thank you for your texts. Keep them coming in.
Thank you very much. Now, after the break, musician and mental health advocate Bressie is going to be here for a little chat. See you shortly. Our next guest is a mental health advocate, podcaster, former rugby star, GA star, I gather as well, and a recent DIY expert.
You love talking about being a former GA or rugby star when you're sitting beside this fella.
No,
it's a bit mad, isn't it? Bressie, good morning.
How are you?
How are you?
I was like you. I was a GA player, really. You couldn't admit it. I was a GA. So were you.
Well, I was a GA who couldn't make it.
You couldn't make it. It was like, will anyone else take me? That's absolutely mad.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
It's good to have you here. It's lovely. Yeah. We're going to talk about, first of all, because you have this hugely successful podcast and you're one of those podcasters, the Irish podcasters that really took off at the start. You're finally taking it to the stage, but are you a bit worried about taking it to the stage? Because you tend to have to cancel your shows, Bressie.
Yeah, every time I announce a tour or show, another wave of that dreaded thing happens.
Don't mention it.
Literally every time. So the joke was like, if you don't announce anything, we'll be out of this pandemic in no time. Every time I announced and put a tour together, and putting a tour together is a lot of work. Like, you have to plan it, you have to find the venue, you have to write the show. Every time. And it was always about a week before we were like, oh, this isn't going to happen. And you don't know whether you can go, do we pull it or what do we do? And the last tour that I booked, we had to be pulled 2 days. And it was the day we pulled it, they announced that actually we're grand, lads, we're going to open up, and it was too late at that point.
Sickener. Well, listen, it's coming in April. It's going to be in the 3 Olympia Theatre, and it's going to be class. But you see a lot of these podcasts going onto stage, and they're all, they're very far removed from the podcast, it looks like. So how are you going to, on a mental health podcast, where's my mind? How are you going to, because there has to be this entertainment, but people obviously want real stories and stuff as well. How do you bring that balance to a venue like the Olympia, which is epic?
It's a really good question. I think that's the thing that I've been really kind of trying to figure out myself. But the whole idea is where I'm most comfortable on stage. It's what I've done for 15, 20 years. I've been gigging, and I thought to myself, do you build a bit of that into it? A bit of performance, spoken word, a bit of music? And you do, because it's part of my journey and it's what you want to talk about. And it has to be irreverent. There has to be a bit of crack and fun in what you're talking about. And there is. There absolutely is. And to bring a live podcast to a stage, there's more to it now. The game has been upped. If you look at, because it's become such a huge thing, and you look even the guys with the My therapist ghosted me. Like, they're big shows now.
Oh, the set that Joanne and Vogue have going on.
Two Johnnies.
You got to deliver. So I think there is that element. So, you know, I think there is... It's about
but you're
time.
so comfortable there, though. Like, it's something like you've grown up for the last nearly decade, 2 decades.
Yeah.
So surely of all people who should be looking forward and ready.
I know I am. I absolutely am. But I just really hope they don't close down the country again the same week.
But it was just so funny because you were like, I'm doing my tour before anyone else, and the next thing, my therapist ghosted me, and 2 Johnnies came along, and you were like, I could have just got up and had a chat, and you can't do that anymore.
No, you can't. You
have to do. There has to be elements.
You do, and I think that's exactly what it should be. I mean, if you're asking someone to pick up a ticket and pay for a ticket, you got to give them a show. Like, you have to give them more than you just standing there talking. You got to give a bit of a performance as well. But I had booked the UK tour as well, and that was. That's a different thing, because the UK tour, you're going to a place where you're maybe not known, and you really have to deliver every time you get up on stage.
Well, I suppose in the UK, you would be known for the podcast. You know what I mean? So is it that you're not... Because, you know, we expect something of you here. We all feel like we know you, and that it's kind of like you've got these different hats. Whereas in the UK, is there a sense of more freedom? And in America as well, because your podcast was incredibly successful in America as well.
Yeah, the Wake Up Wind Down was in America.
Yeah.
But I think I was just that, like, voice. Nobody knew who it was. It was just a mindfulness voice that came in every morning and every evening, every single day for 2.5 years during the pandemic. The whole idea of that was to try and help people sleep. Like, sleep patterns just went chaotic.
Yeah.
And there was one thing people were saying, I can't sleep. I was like, right, well, I always knew my voice would put people to sleep one day, and I was kind of delighted. But it's that monotone Irish voice that the Americans are like.
Found my caller.
Yeah, it's just like, people. So maybe that's what I'll do in 3 Olympia. Just everyone just falls asleep, and I'm like, lads, you have to leave. It's closed. You know?
I mean, to be fair to the viewers right now who are watching this,
Okay. We'll do Zumba again in a second.
Oh, no,
I would have thought you'd have a very good meditation voice as well.
Yeah, but then people just think of me and hear 10 siblings, and then that's
you're never going to...
Let's talk about the podcast, though, because you actually, so it's not just always in Ireland, you actually travelled across the States as well, spoke to a lot of people over in San Francisco. What was the thinking behind that?
I'm over there quite a bit, and I thought it was like, in San Francisco, I'll go up, and there's quite a big Irish immigrant population there, and it's a huge conversation we're hearing now around immigration, but we're not really hearing the Irish people that left and how they were received. And actually, when you talk to them, Irish people who went to San Francisco were immensely well received. Obviously, there's different waves of immigration. But I just thought it was interesting, the difference it makes when a community brings you in, supports you, integrates you, gives you, opportunity. And a lot of these guys I spoke to are very successful people who have done really well in construction, in health, in other areas. And I just thought it was an interesting perspective to kind of change it and see, what are the big things that challenge the immigrants in terms of their mental health as well. And the big thing is community. It's like when they have community and they have support and they're able to integrate into it, it has a profound impact on them. And I spoke with the men's sheds in San Francisco. It was an incredible conversation. These are all Irish immigrants who've been there from the 70s, 80s, 90s, talking about, their heads, men in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And that's the generational shift that has had to happen, that has happened, and we should really celebrate it. Like, it's really a big thing to see men in their 70s and 80s actually open up like that.
And I suppose when you're talking to an immigrant community and you're looking back at Ireland, at the state of immigration here, because it has become an attractive place to live since the late 90s. We are a rich country. And to see kind of the divide that's happening now.
Yeah, and actually they brought that up. But they also brought it up, it's difficult for them to look back and see a country that is so celebrated as a economically successful country with the social issues that we have. Yep. They don't understand that. And, they brought up, listen, we can understand that the policies that have driven this, and they're very awake to it. But it was interesting to see. So it wasn't just like, we need to have a conversation about this. They understand that the economy here, we use like this GDP, it's a very blunt instrument to judge a society on. you judge a society on how it treats its most vulnerable. That's, to me, is what economics should be.
And to be fair, Ireland is always known for its welcome, and I think the amount of people who open up their homes to people coming into the country as well. But listen, we're seeing these marches or whatever else. It's not something that we could be proud of, but I think the majority of people in Ireland are hugely welcome, and I think we realise that because so many people have gone to Australia and America and Canada and whatever else. You've also left home as well. Like you've moved all the way over to Greystones.
Yeah, it's a fair trip.
And the community welcomed you in there.
They have. They absolutely have, yeah.
A Mullingar man through and through. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I feel very welcomed in the community. But no, I moved in the pandemic. I was like I've been for years looking to buy my first home, and kind of happened fairly quickly. I didn't barely get to view the house, because that's at the same time. I hate to lament the pandemic, but we kind of forgot about how crazy it was.
Yeah.
You know, so that was how I ended up by now.
Are you down doing naked yoga with the happy pair lads?
No.
As well,
I haven't got as far as the naked yoga yet.
Okay.
I haven't even got as far as stretching my hamstrings yet, but I'm getting there.
Get you back to the GAR roots again.
There's a secret WhatsApp group for the naked sessions. And
absolutely. I haven't been invited yet. I haven't. I'm sure you've kind of snuck down a few times, Tommy.
No,
you
it's not really
probably
my scene.
have now, really,
Yeah.
is it? But you said something there a minute, because obviously you did live at home with the folks during the pandemic in Mullingar. And Mullingar is a happening spot.
No, it is.
What did you just call it? What's it called now?
I didn't just call it. It's what it's called.
What is
it's
it?
the Miami of Ireland.
Because everyone's moving there.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing so hard?
Mullingar.
Lads, you've got it. You won't know unless you go.
But you can't get a house there.
No.
Right? It's
We're
impossible.
not building.
I know loads of people that have bought in Mullingar. Mates of mine who moved home during the pandemic, they made it look like the lakes.
But it is. You see, it is that actually. One of the things that I kind of realised I really want to probably look at moving home again was the flat. The flat is one of the best things you have ever gone to, and it's hard to describe it. It's like I mean, Coachella is a bad example because it's not
so
that
different now.
I mean, come
Coachella
on
with
now,
violins.
From Miami to Coachella with Mullingar.
Well, it's like the whole town lifts up a little bit. Like it's like it vibrates.
I remember that Tommy Tiernan sketch about the Cayley when and you look out the window, all of a sudden you're on the moon. It's kind of like that. You lose sense of time.
Yeah.
And it just turns in. And there's like 300,000 people on the streets. There's lads 5 years of age who are better musicians than most people I've ever met in my life, with like sitting outside on like seats with their families, and it's just a beautiful kind of vibe. And I think Mullingar nailed it this year.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big kind of people coming to the town. Like that worked. That was a phenomenal kind of.
Do you know what would work? Get them on stage.
Oh,
There you
absolutely.
go.
Yeah.
Sorted. That's
Special
the plan
guest.
for the
Miami of Ireland. I hadn't heard it before. Mullingar.
It is landlocked, I get it, but there's a lot of lakes. And,
and you also have rugby roots as well, former Leinster player too. I gather, did you say your parents are Scottish as well?
My mum is Scottish.
Your mum is Scottish.
And my sister and brother are Scottish. They live there, so.
Divided loyalties, Ireland against Scotland this weekend?
Nah.
I don't, not really, but my mother would, I suppose. But like, I think actually it's always that game where you think Scotland and Ireland, they kind of both like each other, but actually apparently the Scots are. This is the one. It's not England anymore. Everyone wants to be. It's Ireland, which is lovely, but it's a different. We're not used to that mindset.
Yeah, I'm worried. You'd be a bit. Listen, I'd be worried about it, but I think the Scots are definitely licking their lips, particularly the fact that Ireland have them in the World Cup quarter or is the Bulls.
Absolutely,
totally. And Murrayfield, you know, like Murrayfield, like they'll go. It'll be intense. But I do think. I mean, we're getting to the point where Ireland are that good that you kind of go, if they just play their game and they don't get too caught up with the other team, they'll win.
It's a great weekend away as well, though, isn't it?
Edinburgh's a good city.
It's a great
city. Yeah, it is. A lot of hills, though.
A lot of hills, but you can pretend like you're exercising while you're having the crack.
When you go from pub to pub.
That's exactly what you're doing. Oh, listen, Mullingar, the Miami of Ireland. It's my new thing. Bressie, you're going to be in, and I'm like the Olympia Theatre. This is fantastic. 3 Olympia Theatre. 28th of April with Where Is My Mind, the podcast, and there's going to be some surprises, I assume.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. You said one thing
the
that you're like...
surprise is the show's going to actually be on. That's the surprise.
And we're not going to have a pandemic.
No.
That's going to be a good thing. Pleasure talking to you this morning. Thanks so much, Bressie. Cheers.
Sounds great to have you with us.
Hello, Mandy Maher is with us today to show us some occasion wear for all of your upcoming events.
Yes, Mandy, what have you got in store for us? Some lovely looks.
I do. I'm really excited about showing the fashion this morning because when you're showing beautiful dressy outfits from head to toe And they're all going to be kind of inspiring ideas for weddings, because sometimes you don't know what to wear to a wedding.
Yeah.
You know, something you're just always thinking, what do we wear? And I've got some fabulous coloured pieces, which is what I like most. We've got great colour this morning.
Beautiful. Cool. We're going to start with Pam this morning.
So our first look is with Pam, and this is from the house of logo.ie. So it's an online store, but we've seen this earlier on when we were up at 9 o'clock slot this morning. But I'm loving this because it comes in a few colours, but I particularly love this colour. I had it in the green, to be honest, down in the changing area this morning, but decided no, I wanted to show the pink version of it. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful and really well tailored. Loving the flare leg. Very, very elegant jumpsuit. With it, there's very little to do with it. Pop it on and away you go. And that's what I like about it. There's no fussing with it, really. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it is.
And the whole ruching as well hides a multitude.
It sure does, Alan, and it's very, very elegant. Now, it's that Bardot style. If you wanted to, you could easily pop it on one shoulder and wear it down on the other. So you could easily restyle the top part of this particular jumpsuit. But it's just simple, very easy to get on and off, because sometimes people have a fear. Women often have a fear about wearing jumpsuits, you know, but it's very, very easy to take on and off.
That's what you need. That's what you need to know. So simple jumpsuit and then the crown.
Isn't it fabulous? I'm loving the headpiece, and this is coming from Jennifer's Hat Emporium, and it's all for rent, and which is what I love. But she stocks lots of absolutely incredible designer milliners, and this is one of her pieces. And actually, this milliner happens to be from Galway, called Katrina King. But I love it. It's beautiful, isn't it? And it really complements the outfit.
Makes me smile. I love when you go to a wedding and you see people wearing pieces. It's great.
Yeah, and it's just fabulous. I just think it, as I said, it just finishes off the outfit. It has that wow factor. It's all about being different shapes, and it gives it, as I said, just finishes the look for me.
Beautiful.
And we teamed it up then with this gorgeous little clutch bag as well, and it's also from Jennifer's Hat Emporium. You could actually buy the clutch, but if you want to, you could actually rent the clutch as well, which I think is a lovely thing to do, because sometimes with clutches you may not reuse it, so it gives the option of being able to...
How much is it to rent the clutch?
It's actually €20 to rent, or you can buy it out if you want to. Yeah, so it's actually great, and lots of multitude of colours as well going on in that, which is what I liked.
And beautiful little tennis bracelets.
Yeah, I'm loving the jewellery. Then who doesn't like a bit of bling? And I know I'm definitely one woman that loves diamonds. This is all from desertdiamonds.com online again, and these beautiful tennis bracelets. There's actually 3 bracelets here, and again like that, to keep the because the outfit is quite simple, I wouldn't go OTT on accessories, and these are just nice and classy and simple.
Yeah, let the crown do the work.
Absolutely.
The crown definitely does the work.
We teamed up then with these little, I don't know if you can see there or not as well, with these little cuff earrings as well. So if you're a person like myself that's absolutely terrified of needles and don't want to go through the full piercing and rigmarole of all being sore and the whole shebang, all you do is pop these on your ears and away you go.
Are you terrified of getting your ears
God
pierced?
almighty, yeah, you'd want to sedate me, literally sedate me on something I know off. But anyways, but I love it because it's nice, and I wear mine all the time too. I love them.
But your ears are pierced.
Yeah, but they are. But here, there's my little cuffs I just pop on every morning.
Okay.
So away I go.
She went through the pain. She was like, sure, I'll have the baby.
I'll have the baby, and then I'll get that
again.
Trust me, definitely never again.
Dervlas this morning, beautiful.
So, isn't this fabulous as well? And as I said, it's something for everybody in this wonderful dress, again from the House of Logo, but seeing all the lilacs, the oranges, the green mixed print, very, very chic, elegant dress. It has a lovely flow to this dress itself. Loving the pockets. We all love pockets, as we always say, but it really is quite chic and
it's a full wraparound dress.
It is indeed. As you can see there, and I like the fact as well that it is that 3/4 length sleeve as well, because I always say there's a certain stage I feel the tops of the arms need to be covered. This is definitely one that works much.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's very elegant.
I love these hats. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I love a bit of netting.
Yeah, isn't it lovely?
I love a bit of netting.
Don't we all love a bit of netting?
I want to get a pillbox hat with netting coming over to be like
just on with
an
a headband,
Italian widow.
so it's nice and comfy?
Exactly, it's elastic headband, Alan, so it is really, really comfortable. And it's beautiful. And again, like that, sometimes hats aren't for everybody, but for me, I think if you want to finish off a look, in particular if you're going for a wedding, let's pull all the stops out and finish off the outfit and give it a good compliment look, and that's exactly what this does. As I said, over 1,300 headpieces, would you believe, that Jennifer's Hat Emporium has to choose from.
Wow.
So there's definitely no excuse if you can't find something in her store.
1,300?
Yeah, isn't it incredible? Finish it off then with this gorgeous clutch as well. Again, like that, keeping with the lilacs. Now, we kept the shoes quite neutral on this, and Dervla's wearing her own shoes with this, but you could easily rock up with something different if you wanted to on the footwear.
Beautiful. And what are we doing with jewellery?
And again, with the jewellery, then actually we've got with these gorgeous little hoop earrings, as you can see here, again from Desert Diamonds. Kept it very simple. We could have gone custom jewellery. We didn't. I just wanted something a little bit more elegant with this particular look.
And the rings?
And then the same then with the beautiful ring as well. It's an amethyst ring, as you can see here.
Look at that.
Picking up on the colours. As I said, who doesn't love the old diamonds? But we all love to be looked after.
at her.
Hint, 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 hint is what we're saying on that one.
So she is. Dermot, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Katie is out with our next look this morning.
And we're heading to Aria Boutique in Naas, of course, just down the road. But again, like that, this is just absolutely fabulous.
I think
lovely,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, to me, this is definitely a showstopper dress. It's stunning in the electric blue. Electric blue is a colour you are going to be seeing massive this season.
It was one that started out, I think Viola Davis was the first one who wore it on a red carpet this year, that blue, and it is kind of the colour of the season. Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful? And again, it's very simple outfit. There's a gorgeous little slit detail on the dress. It has this beautiful OB belt, as you see, with that little bit of silver trimming on it as well. We kept...
Does it only come in the blue?
It only comes in the blue, but it's just...
Oh no, it's beautiful.
It's stunning. I love it. I'm loving the drop on this dress. The cut on this is incredible. Really, really fabulous.
You put a little bracelet with it there?
And we did. We teamed it up then with the bracelet. Everything from Aria. Kept it very simple. It's actually an Irish design called Corona, and you see the little bit of Diamante as well on that bracelet itself too.
And you pick up the silver in the earrings.
Yeah, and just kept the earrings very simple as well. I think, and we didn't go for a headpiece with this. We actually kept it because as I said, not everyone wants hats or headpieces.
And sometimes the dress is enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a very elegant, beautiful dress, fabulous quality.
Katie, that is absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous on you.
It's gorgeous. Love that. Thank you so much for that.
So Pam's back.
And Pam is back this time. And our final look again, staying with Aria Boutique in Naas.
Oh, look
now,
at
I said
that.
to you, I could see you in this. I love this.
Michelle Yeoh did an opposite thing with the dress on the red carpet at the SAGs, where it was black, and then she had the middle piece all the way down. Was that colour? Was the cream with feathers?
Isn't it fabulous?
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm loving this. I just think this is a real showstopper of a jumpsuit. And again, like that, I would keep it very, very simple, which is what we've done. You can see lots of shimmer going on here in the background of this jumpsuit. It has pockets as well on it, but of course, it's all about the whole thing about this
like,
feather
I can't find the
trimming.
pocket. It's there.
Isn't it stunning, isn't it?
It's all about the feather detail on
Yeah,
it.
of course it is. But that's what I'm saying. You're walking with this and it's a showstopper. It's just beautiful and yet very simple at the same time. From a point of view, it's not over the top.
No, but you got the Jackie O hat on with it.
I know
as
we
well,
do, isn't it
though?
gorgeous?
Yeah.
And that particular hat is from Aria and it's also for rental. And it's designed by Shimmer, is actually the label on this. And they're actually Galway girls as well, actually, it just so happens. But a beautiful mixture of the felt with the leather as well. But I just think that's just a fabulous outfit. Again, you just walk in, there you go, and you're going to make a statement. I told you I was overexcited.
Yeah,
Just one about the
overexcited.
outfit.
Loving
It's
it.
good. Yeah,
Loving
so
it.
thanks.
More
Mandy.
hats. Let's do more hats in a few months' time. I love doing that now. I
Absolutely.
love doing that. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Mandy.
Mandy
you
Maher.
both.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Time for a quick break now, but on the way, we're going to be talking about Gossies and Love Island drama with
Tommy
Ali
won.
Ryan.
Tommy
See you
won
in a
at the
few
Gossies.
minutes.
Love and life. Talk to you shortly.
Now, excuse me, it was quite the weekend for Showbiz.
For
with lots
Tommy
of
and Myrne
Love
it
Island
was.
drama. And sure, listen.
Where's your award?
I know an award ceremony was on, the old Gossie Awards.
Where's your award?
Prizes.
Joining us now
this
to
award.
Oh, you have it.
Oh,
Joining us
surprised.
now to discuss it. I have one as well, but I had to rob one. It was Ali Ryan from goss.ie.
I was expecting the robbed one and Tommy's one to be here, to be honest.
Good morning to Ali. We'll talk about that in a moment, but some big news about Chris Rock. Now, it is the year, obviously, the Oscars are next Sunday, and it's the year to that famous slap.
Oh my God, I actually can't believe it was a year ago now.
Yeah.
So Chris is kind of finally talking about it, and he's done it in a very clever way. It's through his very own Netflix special.
Of course he is.
So people are now going to go to Netflix and watch what he has to say. So he talked about it a few times during the Netflix special, but he basically said, yes, it happened, it was a year ago. And he started off by saying, I was actually such a fan of Will. Like, I've always been Team Will Smith, I've always been bigging him up. And then he basically said that he wasn't expecting it, and that people always say words hurt, and he was like, try getting punched in the face. So he was just saying that it's still something he's reeling from, but he had a lot of digs to give back. I think he's been waiting a year so he could actually go at him a bit.
This, in case anybody was living under a rock, is when Will Smith went on stage and slapped Chris Rock.
Yeah, so at the
slapped
Oscars,
him.
Chris was up. You know, they always have comedians at the Oscars, and they're meant to poke fun at the audience.
Yes.
That is literally the job. We've seen Ricky Gervais do it before at loads of awards. So he was on stage and he made a little joke about his wife, Jada Smith, basically calling her G.I. Jane, but she actually does have alopecia. So the reason she had no hair was because of that. And Will obviously took offence. I think there's more behind the scenes between the three of them. They just have issues anyway. And he was seen walking up on stage and everybody thought it was a bit, and then he slapped him and people still thought it was a bit. But when he got down and he said, keep my wife's name out of your
effing mouth, yeah.
that's when people realised it was real. And it was very serious. Like, Will Smith is banned from the Oscars for the next 10 years.
But he still won Best Actor,
He won that
didn't he?
night.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was so cringing then, wasn't it? Because he went up and he started crying and everything.
And he's on TikTok now, and he actually did a TikTok the other week, and it was this kind of viral thing where it's like when, you know, someone doesn't like you, and it was his Oscar beside him. As in, he's banned. Like, he can't go back.
No, for 10
which
years.
is going to be a huge impediment on his career, because directors are hardly going to want to work with him if he can't even win an Oscar. I don't even know what that means. He can't attend. So it's just interesting now that it's taken a year, but Chris really poked fun at their relationship then, basically saying that they're the ones bringing the drama to the forefront, because Jada has a show on Facebook called Red Table Talk, where they talk about everything.
What's this about?
And on an episode, she spoke about an entanglement. I love the way celebs use these words. You cheated.
She cheated.
An entanglement with this rapper called August, who was her son's friend. And in the episode...
So she was speaking to her husband, Will
about
Smith.
it. It was like a therapy session live.
Opened up about
live
this
on Facebook, yeah. And he was kind of like, I was upset about it, I was angry. But then I think weeks later in GQ magazine, he came out and said, actually, we're in an open marriage. So the two of them have really brought their own dirty laundry and they've aired it themselves. So Chris was basically like, if you want all the drama, you're the one bringing it out there.
Because Jada's been on about open relationships for years, and
it's
and talking
very
about
well known
that
in
she's had affairs with women and men.
It's something everyone's kind of known in LA for a very long time. So I think Chris's point was just, you're the ones bringing the drama. I was just up there saying a joke. So it'd be interesting to see if Will comes back on this now, because he was actually nice about Will at the start of the bit. He just couldn't...
listen, he's sold it again to Netflix. It's a year on.
I'll watch it, like, I'm going to watch it.
You're going to watch it, you're going to see it.
And listen, one of the guys here behind the camera as well was telling us it's actually really good. It's a really
they've seen
good
it
show.
already.
Yeah,
I love Chris Rock.
Let's talk about the Gossies.
A little thing that happened on Saturday, the Gossie Awards, the Gossies. Congratulations, well done, fab night.
How was Warren? She was amazing.
Warren was amazing, yeah. So she was our ringmaster, and she dressed up as a ringmaster too, which I was delighted. So yeah, about a year ago, I was like, I really want a circus theme. I was like, let's actually do a circus. So we had circus performers, Fawcett Circus were there. We had really special guests, obviously Tommy Bowe, Alan Hughes. They were top of the
Tommy
list.
won and Muireann won, so congratulations.
Yes, best female TV presenter.
Where is your award?
It's in the green room.
Now, there's me. You see, I have one as well, but I had to rob one. I was presenting an award for Barry Keoghan for Best Actor. And he wasn't there because he's in Hollywood or somewhere like that.
He's in LA.
So I took his one. So Barry Keoghan, if you're watching this morning, I have your award at home. Come around any time for it.
Everybody who voted for us. Honestly,
thank you to everyone who voted.
And it was a lovely night.
And we had great guests like Ekin-Su and Davide. They were so much fun, because I just didn't know, would they come and be like, what is going on? But they actually had a brilliant time. Like, they really enjoyed it. Laura Anderson was there, Dami Hope was there, Faye Winters. We basically had half of Love Island there.
Well, we basically, and Faye was lovely, but I was slagging Davide because he was just wearing a jacket, and I said, can you not afford a shirt?
Oh my God, I know. That was so funny.
I was just happy hanging out with Dahi O'Shea.
Oh my God, Dahi was
in great form.
Dahi
was in great form.
There's no Gossies without him. Honestly, it was brilliant.
But well done to Tommy and well done to Muireann.
Yeah, delighted.
It was a super.
And it was a great night.
Fun.
Now, speaking of Ekin-Su and Davide and all the Love Island people, is it coming to an end? When is it over? It seems to be on for years.
This day next week is the finale. So this is the final week, and tensions are really starting to rise in there. You can really see it. So it all started out, first of all. It took a time, yeah, because I think people were bored a little bit for a few days, because when it gets to this part, everyone's happy. It's the end of the show. So there's been a few games they played. The first one was basically the public were voting who's the least compatible, who's the least sexiest, who's the least best looking, who wouldn't work on the outside, all these different things, and they had to guess, and it caused absolute mayhem in the villa. So one of them was, which is the most unrequited couple, as in one-sided, and Jessie and Will were voted that. So she started crying afterwards. There was drama about that. Then there was one who is playing who's the most game-playing couple.
Yeah.
And Ron,
this always does cause tension every year, because it just makes you feel, and then they have the thing, who do you think is playing the game the most and all that, and people
war, because you have the idea that the public are thinking this, but also people in the villa
are thinking
like, oh, well, we think it's you. And so a lot of people thought it was Ron and Lana. So there's been a fallout now since then about Ron and Lana, because Ron said something by the fire pit that, you know, he thinks game playing is really easy to be seen, but that the best couples win are the ones that have really bad times at the start, but then they sail through and they win at the end. And he was like, just like me and Lana. So everyone was like, you've literally just said, that is a game.
So with a week to go, who do you think might win it? Or who do you think deserves to win? Do you know the way last year everyone was saying Ekin-Su and Davide deserve to win it.
She's back.
Oh, she's back.
The ringmaster.
She has the ringmaster's here. Who do you think?
I think Ron and Lana will make it to the end, and possibly Tom and Sammy. But there's such a divide. There's so much tension. They might pull each other's hair out before we get there.
Right. Very good. Also, huge congratulations on the weekend. You put on such a good show, and you're flying out to LA for the Oscars.
I'm literally about after this going to the airport to the Oscars, so I'll report back on that. And yeah, it's going to be brilliant. Like, so many Irish people are nominated.
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm going to the
great thing,
Oscar wild party. So I'm hoping to see them all.
Take Barry Keoghan's trophy with you.
Oh, yes! I give it to you. You can give it to him over there.
Andy Ryan from goss.ie, thank you so much for that, as always. Thank you all for joining us. We shall see you again bright and early tomorrow morning.
See you then. Bye-bye. Yeah, of course, you can take it over.